All right, so this one has a rectangular coordinate system, so I've transferred these points. By the way, what shows up on my computer screen and what shows up sometimes when it prints out are two different things. And this point right here and this point right over here that you're seeing as not quite lining up on the crosshairs, so to speak, are not supposed to be off the crosshairs. Anytime that happens, just assume they're near on the nearest point possible and don't try to guess because we're not allowed to guess and they're not meant to be guessing. All right, so with that said, the first thing that we're asked to do in this problem is to label the origin. So the origin is where our x and our y axes, so our x-axis is the horizontal axis and y-axis is our vertical axis, that's where they meet. So I'm going to put a dot here and that is the origin, and I'm going to label it with the correct ordered pair, and that would be 0, comma, 0. And remember that ordered pairs are the x coordinates, comma, the y coordinates. So remember x. My computer's being a little bit freaky here. I'm not able to write x, comma, y. X, comma, y, and that would be the ordered pair that we need. So that's how we're going to label that as 0, comma, 0 because it's x-axis 0, y-axis 0. All right, now the next thing that it asks us to do is to label the 4 quadrants. So the 2 axes break up the plane into 1, 2, 3, 4 quadrants. Quadrants are labeled with Roman numerals, not the kind that you usually write, the Arabic ones. So this is Q1. And then we go from the upper right counterclockwise to Q2. And then down to Q4. No, sorry, Q4, not Q4, Q3. And then finally to the last one, Q4. Now remember that the Roman numeral for 4 is an I before a V because it's take away 1 from 5. So quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4 counterclockwise from the upper right-hand corner. Label the x and y axis. You already saw me label the x horizontal and the y vertical axes. And I have already started to label by 5 so that I could get my counting done here. So I will finish this up. You've noticed that I've done ones here. So this is 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4. And because I have such tiny little squares here, I think I'm just going to, get you the idea there and you would do this. Hopefully you'd have more room to do it here than I have on this graph system here. I should have blown up my quadrant a little bit before I drew this so that we would have a better scale. And then it says the following ordered pairs, that I'm supposed to plot the following ordered pairs and label them on the coordinate system. So I'm going to plot 4, negative 5. So x is equal to 4 and y is equal to negative 5. So 4, and then I'll come down to negative 5 and I'll put a point there, and then we always label it with the ordered pair that goes along with it so you know what that ordered pair or what that point represents. And then x equals negative 2 and y equals 0. So that's negative 2, and I'm not going anywhere on the y, so that's right there on the x-axis. That's something called an x-intercept, so this is 2, comma, 0. And then negative 1, positive 4. So here's negative 1 on the x, and then I go up to positive 4. And that one would be right in there, and then I label that with negative 1 and then comma 4. And again, I apologize because I should have blown the scale up a little bit so you could see these better. And then it says to label the points that you see with the correct ordered pairs. So here's our first one in quadrant 1, and that is at x is equal to 4 and y is equal to 1. So that's going to get labeled with 4, comma, 1. And then over here, this one is underneath x is equal to -4, and next to y is equal to -2. So we'll label this one with -4, comma, -2. And then there's one right here on the x-axis, or not, the y-axis, and we'll see that that one is at x equals 0 and y equals -4. So x equals 0 and y equals -4. That is known as a y-intercept point when it's on a line, because it would intercept or intersect the y-axis right there. So we have a point in quadrant 1, one in quadrant 2, one in quadrant 3, one in quadrant 4, and one each on the x and the y axes. And those are all the points that you needed to plot.